Lessons I learned the hard way, coming home through truth. You are listening to Empower Mind Talk, navigating mental health, strength, and belonging. And let me tell you something, this is a real soul talk. I am your host, Maureen, a life and purpose coach, mental health advocate, Asia coach, author, and a fellow traveler on this winding path of healing, identity, and homecoming. Welcome back to Empower Mind Talk, dear souls. This is a space where the journey softens, where the armor can rest, where the question is no longer how do I survive, but gently becomes here you are safe to arrive. Here you belong. So let's begin. There are lessons life does not whisper. They just arrive, sometimes loud, uninvited, or often too late to avoid, or just too late to avoid them. Lessons that you didn't choose, lessons that found you in the middle of trusting, in the middle of giving, in the middle of believing things would be different this time. And still, these lessons do come just the hard way, not because you are foolish, not because you are weak or I was weak or foolish in that case, but because some truths can only be understood through experience. Unless I experience it, I don't just understand it or just get it. Through heartbreaks, through disappointments, through the quiet realization that what you hoped for is not what is, and that changes you. And some lessons leave marks that don't fade quickly, like learning that not everyone has the same heart as you. That was really something that I had to learn, the way you think is not the way other people think, and then finding ways of accepting the people the way they are with their hearts and not waiting for them to think and reason like you do yourself or like I do myself. That was really something I really had problems in the beginning, and then just accepting that everybody has their own reasoning capacity, thinking capacity, and accepting them and meeting them at the place they are. And that's when change really happens, when you meet them there and not trying to distract or interrupt their thinking way or the way they reason. And that kindness will not always meet you with care. This is a hard one. And for those who know me, I'm really somebody who's kind. And just knowing sometimes kindness can be misused in that case, like knowing there are people who just want to interrupt your kindness and just use it against you. And this is something that took me also a while understanding. But what I decided is that will not end me, or that will not hinder me from being kind anymore, but just understanding that if it's not met with care, that it's not my mistake, but is the other people's mistake because they want just to misuse the kindness. And understanding that takes a while, and it needs the inner work, inner job, knowing who you are, knowing what you stand for, knowing what you are reasoning, and standing for that as well. And that is really something I will say. If you just know that that's the fact and that's how people or some people react, but still have the capability to stay with yourself and not you change the way you reason or the way you think and remove the kindness off the table because they reacted differently, and just saying, no, I still be kind and leave them to choose if they meet it with care or not. Another thing is that your silence will sometimes misunderstood or be misunderstood. And this is something in the workplace that I really had struggle with, because I am a shy lady from the back, little girl, and being shy can always be misunderstood when you're silent, then meaning like maybe you don't want to talk, or maybe you dumb. That could be taken like that. And most of the times in meetings, my initial, let me say, encounter with silence nowadays, okay, because I do and lead workshops, so I'm forced to talk. So it's not like I'm gonna be silenced. But if I maybe look at our leadership groups, and initially when I was still a corporate assistant, that I would just like to silence. And that didn't mean that I don't want to be part, but just meant like my psychological safety was not met with the aim of helping me bloom or be that who maybe I am. And I recently read something that, you know what, on LinkedIn, and the lady wrote like, you know what, I'm very, very joyous and very, very filled with humor in my mother tongue. And that's something that misses mostly when you migrate and you don't really own the language, and you can't really advocate for yourself the way you think, and your voice becomes a little bit, less like interpreted in you the way you used to do in your language. This makes it hard for one to speak with that, you know what, I advocate for myself, for what I'm thinking, and I trust myself to say it. And especially in the workplaces, sometimes we end up being silenced. And this, of course, is being misunderstood in that case for you not intelligent enough, not capable enough, not self-trustworthy enough. And it can have really an impact on how your career moves or not move, which is really bad, because most of the time, behind the silence is not like you're not intelligent or you're not capable, but it's just like the environment is like pulls you down when it comes to trusting yourself in that case. And another thing that I learned, that my presence or your presence will not always be valued the way it deserves. And this has for me something to do with me being a migrant, me being a Black person, me being a woman, me being, when I started my career journey, a single mom. Like I had like, I think almost all the things that you don't need for your value to be deserved in the presence of others. And it really made it hard for me. And I still struggle in some areas when it comes to me showing what I have and my value to bring it to the table, and maybe sometimes just explain it the way it should be. It's really hard. And I do really still struggle with these, to present my value, and depending on which people you are engaging with. And I always know when, because at my permanent job, it's like I deal with leaders, I deal with teams. And if you know the people, that works really good. But if you just go to another team that you still need to have to know them, it kind of, I struggle with showing them actually who I am. But those people who know me and know what to bring to the table, it makes it a little bit easier. But I always still struggle with like new leaders who I have to accompany, and maybe new teams in that case. That really don't know you, and what they see first is a Black woman. And like the questions in their faces, like, what can you bring, or how can you help us in that case? What helps me actually in that is my side business, because when I'm there, I am called to be there because of my value. That really helps me a lot, because I know they decide, they know who I am, they know what I can bring to the table, and they ask for that. Like, you know what, we know what you're doing and what you're delivering, so we would like that. That helps me really, because it makes me feel like, okay, I'm valued here. And what I would say still, if you have that feeling of not being seen, or that feeling of the values not being seen, I would say what I do is I still show up. Hey, you have to still show up. And if even like in my corporate work, if that value is not seen now, don't stop showing up and showing the people or the leaders you meet or the teams you meet. That's what I do, that I have a value that I bring to the table. And when you show them that, I think then they learn to know who you are and what you're bringing to the table. And of course, it makes us feel tired, that overgiving and that overshowing. And yes, you'll be tired. And yes, you will give and give and give sometimes. But what I would say is don't stop showing up. Don't take it as a sign of weakness, but take it as a sign of learning. I'm growing. Oh, yeah, that's a sign of growth in yourself, and put it into like, you know what, it's helping me in my becoming. It's helping me in my humanity, and just take it at that space and not as a space of weakness. And all these considered, somewhere along the way, I also learned that staying too long in places that hurt you is not loyalty to yourself. And this has been running along my way, staying too much at a job and waiting for it to be changed or things to change and getting a new leader. And then the things change, but still not changing at the help of you and who you are. And also in relationships, staying still long and hoping for things to be better. And this is something that I had really to help myself out, learn out of it. And it's not always, and most of the time, if we see it as a reflection later on when things happen, you always say like, "Oh, that's what I do to myself." Like, I abandoned myself, or why didn't I do that, or why didn't I did react early? And I would just like take you from there. When we react or do movements or make a change, it's always at the capacity of the information we have at hand. And most of the time, and I meet people in my coaching session, you know what, I've been there for a while, I've worked there for a while, and I can't just get out. And why should I? And I think I'm maybe self sabotaging myself or self abandoning myself and not really able to move. But you can't move when you have no information to move and the strength or energy to move or make a change. And that's like just put the self abandonment or self punishment, sabotage away, but take it as, you know what? I'm learning, I'm developing, moving forward step by step with the energy that I have at hand to move me forward. And that's not even shrinking yourself in that a perspective. And what you need to do is just accept that and use it as, you know what, a step to move forward. It's in that case actually maybe survival or just, yeah, survival for whatever things that are going throughout your life, and take it as just that. And I always say, and this is something that really helped me, and that you can meet all these thoughts or all these engagements with love, that real love for yourself, like real acknowledgement for yourself. And it's not about you losing yourself, but just meeting it with love that way you. Now, let's get to the cost of learning the hard way that could come with this process. There is a quiet grief that comes with these lessons that we often learn, and of course, learn them at a later stage in our lives. The grief of realizing you deserved actually better sooner. And like I mentioned, it's not like you slapping yourself for that, but it has always a feeling like, you know what, I could have done it sooner. The grief of the time spent explaining yourself to people who are never listening. And yes, there are thoughts, and like, yes, you can deal with them, and don't slap yourself for that or don't punish yourself for that. It's just like a grief that comes with that when you get to realize, and depending on the time that you spend on these things, it's always something like, it's a thought pattern that always appeared. The grief of the version of you that tried so hard to be enough for the wrong spaces. And maybe the hardest truth of all is you don't, or you cannot force someone to meet you where they have never been. And this is a realization that I had to know and deal it with myself. And, they are in their own ways and journeys. and they don't know my journey in that case. So, and it's really wrong to have that expectation that they can ever meet you where you are. But to be open to know, you know what, there will never be that, but at least trying to know, like, I'm trying to give that what I can. And if they can't meet me there, actually, is their problem. This is what I'm bringing to the table. And no matter how much you love them, if it is in relationship, or no matter how much you understand them, if it's maybe relationship or maybe working places, that realization is not a failure. It's actually a clarity that you can take. Like, I'm just clear now. I know we can never meet, but it's a clarity that can help you then move forward. And then something shifts when you have this clarity, not loudly, but not even dramatically, but really quietly knowing, you know what? I know how to react to such things. You begin to choose yourself in moments where you used to hesitate in the past. Maybe you begin to walk away without needing to explain, and that's something really good. And I love it sometimes when I trust myself to do that, and I end up doing it, and I'm like, oh damn, that was really bold of you, Maureen. That's how I talk then to myself. Or you begin to realize that peace feels unfamiliar only because cows felt like home for so long. And slowly you stop asking, why did this happen to me? And you begin asking, what is the teaching, or what is this teaching me about myself? And that is the moment everything begins to change. And if I look all these in the Ubuntu, let me say, glasses, and maybe to that philosophy, for those who've been stayed here for a while now, I am an Ubuntu advocate. Ubuntu reminds us that I am because we are. And even in the hardest lessons, you are not alone, not always alone. Let me say it like that. There are stories that mirror yours. There are hearts that have broken in the same places. There is a quiet understanding that lives between people who have learned the hard way too. So these are always something that, or this is something that helps me know, like, you know what, in all maybe the rejections that you go through, you will meet a heart, a soul that could align with yours and your perspective. So don't give up on that. And that shared truth are always healing. Like, if you meet someone who you can share that truth at that level, it's always a healing process that's going in the background. Not because the pain disappears, but because it is no longer carried alone. And let's go into why these could matter, the load could matter for our mental health. Because unlearned lessons become repeated patterns. If I don't learn out of it, it's a pattern that runs my thoughts and my being and my reacting to the world. And because what you tolerate teaches others how to treat you. So the more I tolerate that and don't learn out of it, the more they or the others know, like, you know what, this is how she needs to be treated. And because the mind holds on to what hurts until it is understood. And that's where the turning point comes, or the change actually comes. When I realize, like, I don't need to hold these anymore. And I don't want it to be understood like that, so that it doesn't hurt me anymore. And if you don't stop that pattern, it continues to hurt you, because a mind, and that's our mind, it loves comfortability. It loves something. It's just a comfortable thing, and loves how to, it works like that. And of course, the patterns just continue. And healing, and that's where we need to go. Healing begins the moment you stop blaming yourself for what you did not yet know at that moment. And this is where I started, because we can only give that what we know and react also to that what we know. And if we didn't have the knowledge when those things happened, we cannot change them, or we cannot react to them in a positive way, or in a perspective of changing. And just allowing yourself to know, like, okay, that was me. I didn't know that yet. And I am learning. and I am navigating and I am becoming, and allow that process to continue in your mind. You know what? I am becoming, I am learning, and I will make mistakes, but still I allow myself to learn. And I have got 3 anchoring truths about this. Number 1, hard lessons were not punishments. They were teachers, and just take them really as teachers. Even when they hurt, they revealed what needed to be seen at that space. And thank God you have the revelation on that. Number 2, you are allowed to outgrow what once felt right. And this is the allowance you always have to tell yourself. Growth will change your understandings and standards. So let it change that, and let those standards change as well. Number 3, wisdom is born from experience, not perfection. So allow yourself to experience what you need so that you can help yourself gain the wisdom that you need to grow for yourself. You did not fail in that case. You learned and are still learning. I have an affirmation that you can take for you today. Say these gently to yourself. I honor the lessons that shaped me. I release what they cost me back then, and I carry forward only wisdom that I have learned out of the lessons. If you have walked through these lessons and you are still here, thank you for staying with me, for your resilience, for your honesty, for your willingness to grow even if it hurts. Share this episode with someone who is learning the hard way too. Subscribe to Empower Mind Talk. Leave a review if this space has held you. And remember, you are not naive. You are open. You are not weak. You are learning. And now you are wiser. Until next time, may you feel grounded. May you feel clear. And may you allow yourself to remember, or may you always remember, even the hardest lessons can lead you home to finding yourself.